I'd like to call the regular Board of Education meeting in order. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Kelly.
Ms. Flynn?
She's absent. Excused.
Ms. Stewart?
Here.
Ms. Patchen?
Here.
Mr. Rakowski?
Here.
Mr. Chang?
Here.
Mr. Wolf?
Here.
Mr. Zah?
Here.
Ms. Gadsden? Mr. White?
Here. Prior to the time.
Exits are at the back of the LGA.
I need a motion to adjourn to executive session and to review the employment history of particular individuals.
Second.
Kenya. All those comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 8-0. Board is expected to return at 7:30 sharp. So we have a couple workshops tonight. The first is going to be PPS. Dawn? Melissa?
Good evening. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to review with you the plans that we're working on currently with Pupil Personnel Services and envision and program needs that we're looking for the following school year. So we have several department goals, but we wanted to come up with one unified statement that encompasses some of the goals that we're looking at as we continue our work in PPS. And we're looking at making sure that we're servicing all of our students from ages 3 to 21 who are eligible for services, and really looking at the continuum of services based upon Part 200 and the supports that we need to provide for our students. We're having the initiative of really looking at our least restrictive environments for all of our students in general education classes and our special education classes and our related service people. And underneath that, we're really focused on making sure that we're providing students the ability to be successful in developing self-advocacy skills, looking at continued enrichment of skills and knowledge by our special education personnel, develop appropriate instructional strategies that are needed to serve our diverse population of students with varying disabilities, and providing inclusionary opportunities as appropriate. And through that, we provide ongoing professional development opportunities for our staff between the two of us, as well as holding our monthly special education meetings.
So a couple of the ways that we've been working, at least this year, on our PPS goals. We're working on aligning the department's goal with current practices for student state accountability requirements, including the continuation of professional development around the writing effective IEPs. In addition, this year the PPS department is in its second year of focusing on development of quality IEPs to ensure that we have measurable annual goals, that we write present levels of academic performance that are reflective to the actual students' abilities as well as challenges as they shape the specialized instruction that they receive in our programs. And another focus for us is a transitional planning that helps us align our practices to meet compliance of Indicator 13, while at the same time ensuring that we're providing our students and their families with the right supports and planning both while they're of school age until they turn 21.
Some of the other focuses that we've been doing, we've had the opportunity, and we were excited to show you the work that we've been doing with the student-directed IEP process. We've also been working on comprehensive guidance documents for the department. With one of the plans that came out of our compliance review is our functional behavior assessments and behavior intervention plans. So through the work that we've been doing with the state to ensure that we come into compliance, we've created a guidance document for our FBAs and our BIPs that are in the hands of all of our service providers. We update and continually add to our annual review guidance document, which is a thick Bible that people use through the annual review process, so they're understanding the guidelines and structures that we're looking at as we go through the annual review meetings. We've also completed a realignment of the APPR for the related service providers, which we just started having meetings today, and we're meeting with our related service providers so that we can walk through the new APPR requirements when they're looking at their observations for the rest of this school year and then starting afresh for next year. We've also worked on our seclusion and restraint document, which we provided to the board to assist with policy guidance and resources for the board to use. We've created an IDA procedure handbook, which we continually update on the forms and processes. We have binders in each of the elementary, middle school, and the high school. We align the McKinney-Vento forms and processes in the district. Professional development, we're conducting multidisciplinary evaluations for our students who need reevaluations or initial referrals, and looking at ways in which our special education teachers will be trained internally in-house through our skilled professionals of our school psychologists. And we're looking at, we've been developing criteria and rubrics, assisting in determining what our special education related and related service programs are going to be for the district, really looking closely at entering and exiting criteria. What did you do? That's you.
So some of the current programs that we have here in the district range to service our students pre-K all the way to 12, we either in our integrated co-taught classrooms through resource room support, consultant teacher, either direct or indirect to the student and the classroom teacher. Our special classes 12-1, which is no more than 12 students with disabilities in the class, as well as our special class 15-1 at the secondary level, where no more than 15 students with disabilities are in that classroom. Including our MAPS classrooms, which are a more restrictive setting that provide a more comprehensive support for students with more comprehensive needs in a 612 setting, as well as a STEP class at the high school, providing additional support and strategic support to our students. Our ADL class also provides that support for our students in grades 6 through 12 in a 12-1 setting. Our related service providers as well provide that service to students across K-12, and one of the things that we're also working on and planning looking forward is our continuum of service for our students who are 18 to 21 who are entitled to special education in the district once they turn 18. And that comprehensive plan is also part of what we're working on as we move forward.
We provided a snapshot of the students in the district with disabilities pre-K through 12. We won't go through the full data, but we felt it was important to look at the overall student enrollment per building and the number of students who are identified as having IEPs relating special education support services, the number of students who have been identified as needing 504 plans, and then we looked at the number of initial referrals that came out of each of the buildings for 504 plans and CSE referrals to special education. The 30-day reviews would be students who are entering the district with either 504s or CSEs, and we're currently in the process of doing 15 program searches, or they've already found programs. And this data has been extrapolated back from February 28th. So these numbers will be ongoing as students enter and leave the district. And we also included our CPSE numbers, which have increased over the past couple of years. So we're up to a total of 97 students with CPSEs, with 53 that were initial referrals. Oh, we need to just do that.
Don't touch it.
I won't touch it.
Step away from the screen.
There you go.
Sorry. That's you.
That's you.
Okay, that's me. Sorry. So of the 13 classification categories for students with disabilities in the district for this school year, we're looking at, this is the pie chart that you're looking at is the breakdown of the disabilities that students are classified under who are currently receiving special education services in the district. There is absolutely no trend as we look to what are the services that students need and when and how they're classified. It's an ongoing process for us as a CSC and as a team to work with the schools and families to address the needs of students.
So our next slide, we wanted to present a three-year trend regarding when students are entering and exiting the school district. And this will assist us as we're looking into possible future programming to take a look at it. So for an example, when you're reading this in 2016-17, we had 68 students that entered the district with IEPs. That year, 99 students left the district, and out of the 99, 5 dropped out, 31 graduated, and the rest moved out of district to other locations. So this year, right now, it will be ongoing, and we'll complete that column of who dropped out, anybody, the number of graduates, and number of students who have exited the district because of going into other locations by the summertime. So we'll have that information ready for next year. She yells at me because I click all the time.
I don't yell at her. We just have conversations about how to handle the mouse.
I'm a clicker.
That's you. That's you. Oh, no, that's fine. So based on the data, one of the things that we look at closely is how are we identifying our students, what are the processes that we currently have in place for referrals, how do we navigate the referrals, how do we support school-based teams at making data-driven decisions about student placement as well as referral process. So we currently have numbers students who have classified 126, for which are pending at CSC meetings. We have 7 students who are parentally placed out of district that we know of, and classified student support services we have 5 at Beacon High School. Out of the students who've been referred for initial referral this year, 6 of them have not been eligible for special education services as per the CSE meetings. And you can see the breakdown on the table below, the number of referrals from this year and who's pending. Currently we have, like Dawn said, 97 students classified at CPSC. We have 2 students who have been ineligible but were referred at the high school. So our goal is that as we continue to build our practice, that these numbers will align with core instruction as well as the support services that we're providing within our TI.
This is a sample of, we're examining the projections for the 18-19 school year. So it's like the stock market when the numbers keep changing because we're in the midst of our annual reviews. So we'll see exactly in the next couple months where our numbers are. When you're looking at pending numbers, as we sat down with each teacher individually this year prior to annual reviews, there is some discussion and some additional testing and work that's being done to determine the appropriateness of placements for some students. So those are our pending. We wanted to give them a little bit more time as they're trying to determine the best programs for the students based upon updated information and making sure and ensuring that the parents are part of that decision-making process. So this will help us as we continue to look at programming needs across the district and staffing needs. So this is a live document that will be continually updated on a weekly basis as we're going through the annual reviews. Also, this is updated when we have students that are exiting out of the district with IEPs, so we make sure that we have some adjustments with that. The next slide is our out-of-district tuition costs. So we wanted to give you a little bit of a breakdown where our out-of-district student placements are. And through the annual review process, as well as meeting and discussing specific students at some of these agencies and going and visiting students. We're having some projections. We're looking at bringing back a student from Abilities First into one of our district programs. We're looking at bringing a student back from Green Chimneys. And we'll continually take a look at other students that we could possibly have come back into the district so that we will have the right program and services to make sure that we're supporting them. We have a student that was discharged recently from the Kaplan Career Academy. We're also continually looking at student attendance at these programs, and so if attendance rates have increased, we're making phone calls to the families, the parents, and oftentimes holding CSE meetings to determine why are the attendance rates at the point that they are, and so that we can make appropriate program decisions. So we're trying to make sure that we're tracking that.
Can I ask a quick question? The tuition does not include the transportation costs of getting students there, does it?
No, that's an additional.
I have a question. So the 16 students that are Abilities First, they're not all of this need the same service, so it's not something we can bring in-house?
A majority of our students who attend Abilities First they're medically fragile students.
Yeah.
Oftentimes they need the services of a one-to-one nursing service or a nurse in the classroom or on staff on a regular basis. So right now we do not have the capacity to look at bringing back some of the students. We have one student that does not have the diverse needs in the program. I had my eye on her last year, and then after this year's annual review, we have the parent coming and taking a look at the program. We've had staff go there and observe the student, talk to the staff. So we're talking about some transitions and making sure that we're supporting the student in the least restrictive environment when they come back.
Is any of this funding covered by state funding? Are any of the costs here covered by some of the state funding we get?
Yeah, the grants, the 611 and 619 grants.
Well, the state aid, we get high cost, and so that's all included
the
in the
high
state
cost
numbers
grants, yeah.
that we get? When we do the governor's run, that's all included in that.
And we also wanted to document the BOCES programs that we currently have our students attending. So we do utilize the services of Dutchess County BOCES, the Orange Ulster BOCES, and the Putnam North Westchester BOCES. And again, we are looking at monthly attendance records of the students, and the students that are starting to show a trend on poor attendance, again, we're meeting with the families, we're making the contact, we're talking to the program, and we're holding meetings to determine why are we looking at high numbers of attendance, and maybe we need to look at the programming needs more for the student. That's you.
Great. So with all of this in mind, one of the things that we've been working really hard is, one, assessing where our staff needs are, as well as where are the supports that we're providing our students, and what are the needs in order for us to continue providing quality support. This is a little snapshot of what we project to be our 3-year staffing and program needs. An additional full-time elementary special education teacher to be able to support our kids as we continue to have kids with high needs. One full-time CODA certified occupational therapy assistant. We have seen, and we've had discussions with leadership in the district about the increase in support required at the Tier 1 level in terms of occupational services for kids, understanding their gross motor and fine motor needs, specifically their sensory as well as their developmental school readiness skills. We've looked at a 0.8 physical therapist replacing a contracted service. We're also looking at mental health support, the development of a curriculum, professional development for our staff, and additional mental health providers or social worker. And that's pretty much based on some of the information that we're receiving from school teams about the number of students who are not identified as students with disabilities who are still accessing mental health support at a much higher rate than before for issues related to anxiety, depression, and other social emotional needs that are impacting learning. One full-time transition coordinator. As I said before, we're looking at in the future at creating a program for 18 to 21-year-old students who are required to be in the district till they're 21. We currently don't have a transition coordinator that can create a comprehensive program for our students that align academic, social, emotional, career, and post-secondary services and support, as well as the skills that they need to be able to transition to adult life once they turn 21. We're looking at the development of a special ed program for students with disabilities, certified staff member to ensure the CDOS graduation requirements. Again, that's something that we don't currently have in the district, and creating a network of community businesses to support our work to school program, which would fall under the auspices of transition coordinator as well as the CDOS requirements.
So I'm just going to jump in quickly on this slide. At the next board meeting, I will attempt to take these multi-year recommendations and the recommendations we've got from all other departments and schools and create kind of a multi-year plan to implement all or most of these things. So we asked Dawn and Jalissa to just kind of come up with a complete listing of things they feel like they need. Doing all of this in 1 year would be difficult for us as a district, but what we want to do is create a more comprehensive plan that we feel like we can do this over the next 3 years or so.
And so we added more. We're looking at, as we're examining students' needs at the elementary level for reading specific, we'd like to see a specialized reading teacher at the elementary level and really developing a program based upon the data that we're currently looking at and trends. We're currently working with a team on a handwriting program for pre-K to 2. Right now, again, as we talked about before, the need for additional occupational therapy support is prevalent, but as well as when we've had a multidisciplinary team working together, we're also seeing that students are entering kindergarten with minimal or very cursory level skills in the fine motor. So a lot of the referrals coming through RTI is pretty much on the handwriting development.
I'm sorry, so on the previous slide, it didn't say FTE, but it said that additional mental health provider or social worker. Does that mean you're adding an FTE there too? You're
Mm-hmm.
asking for an FTE there too?
Correct.
Just one?
Yeah.
Oh.
So we're looking at our current reporting system when we're looking at our stacks and Medicaid. Right now, we've purchased Medicaid Direct to help us with looking at where our gaps are with our reporting, and with our current secretary that we have in the position. We're really cleaning up the Medicaid process and the reporting needs, but we're also looking at possibly another company that may be more suitable to what our needs are currently, and continued professional development.
Keep going.
I'll keep going. So our PPS staffing needs, we're having a retirement of our CSE CPSE meeting, and if I talk about it further, I'll need a tissue because we've been very fortunate to have Kate Hines on our team, but she will be greatly missed, and we, especially after you saw the numbers of our CPSE numbers increasing, she runs the majority, if not all, of our CPSE meetings. We're looking at 2 clerical positions. We're anticipating a possible retirement, and we also had a resignation, and then reallocating our current staff so that we have the support of a secretary for our assistant director of PPS. We're looking at mentors for related service providers. We really feel the need of, when we hire new related service providers, that they should have a mentor within their same certification area to help them. The summer support, we're looking at related service and special education teachers to attend our CESE or CPSE meetings. We will have continued testing over the summer from our school psychologist. I have a plan for McKinney-Vento verification for the month of August, that we need to have some additional support because we need to have that information available for Karen Pagano for the food services and Ron Mackey for transportation before the school year begins. The district does hold kindergarten screening, and they do utilize the related support staff for that, and a 6-week program for our special education students in our MAPS and ADL class. So looking forward, starting this year, we're going to be working with our administrative team to look at the different models, special education models, and the delivery of those programs across the district. So the current practice and configurations is currently being examined and looked at, and we will continue that work as an administrative team. Okay.
I have a question on the clerical positions. So you say 2 clerical positions, but really it's an increase of 1. The ones
No, I know that slide didn't make total sense. So we have 1 possible retirement, and we have 1 person that just left.
So it's actually two spots that have already been budgeted. It's not an increase.
That's not an increase, but we want to shift our current staffing around, because right now our assistant director does not have a designated secretary, whereas our assistant principals do, and we really want to keep that practice of making sure that we're providing that support. So it's just, it's what we currently have budgeted.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What is the rationale for replacing some of the contracted services with in-house staff?
For an example, the contracted service, and I have my notes on this side if I can get out of here, for, I just want to look at my note. So our physical therapist, if, right now through our contracted services, if we use that person 0.8, and those numbers are increasing, right now if we do contract with them full-time, it's around $140,000. So we would like to work with Anne-Marie on the cost benefit if we did hire somebody internally. Our school to work program, again, if we had somebody internally, we could own that person to be able to come in, and we have a community out here on Main Street that we can utilize that we're not accessing for our school to work program. So it would be somebody that's understanding the curriculum and the content and pushing more students, not just the students with special needs, but more students to be able to go out there, work on the CDOS, the transition plan, additional work that we need to have done, just not into the school to work piece. And that right now focuses a very small number of students. And we would see that person as also being the special ed coordinator, so to be able to tie all of that in at the high school level.
And how is the department doing as far as the timeliness of the various phases of the IEP process and year-end work and all that sort of stuff? I mean, how do you think your department is doing on that?
Keeping up with the timelines and mandates?
Yeah.
Oh, we're rocking it.
Okay.
We're hitting all of our mandates. We're holding our meetings within the required time frames. We're completing IEPs in a timely manner. They're being finalized, and parents are getting their prior written notice on time.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
What's the difference between the work program you mentioned and the vocational training?
The school to work program would be part of that. We would want to incorporate it because we would like to have not just school to work, but we wanted to add school to work as well as vocational training internally for the students. Right now we're missing that piece, and if we had somebody internal to be able to encompass the CDOS, the students who are from 18 to 21, as well as the students in our ADL classrooms for the school to work.
Just so FYI, there's someone called Tina McKinney who's been working on a vocational training. I think she calls it teen training.
Yeah.
So you've been talking to her?
I'm under once, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My last question is, I'm grateful for the presentation, and I'm glad it's addressing I think are some of our most our students that need that have that we want to. Sorry, I'm a little tongue twisted here.
You're talking about the mental health provider?
Yeah. So, but in addition to needs for the 3 years, are there any wants? I guess.
We didn't think you'd ask us that question.
All right. No, you don't have to answer
Sure.
right now.
No.
But
I think, you know-
there's just getting by, and there's best case. You know.
Right. One of the things that we've been trying to do is really trying to assess where we're using our human resources well and when we're not using them. I think we've been working with Cecilia and Eric to really look at what are the resources out there for the department to be able to build their capacity to really lead the instruction that we need in our IEPs as well as in the classroom, and that in itself is a shift in practice. We would love to be able to have more resources for our staff as well as time for professional development, which is where we all need to continue to grow. But we're right now assessing where we are as a department with the resources that are available to us, and are we maximizing those resources, and if we're not, what do we need to either delete from our practice that's no longer working, add to our practice from what we see in research as best practice, and then what do we need to keep that we're doing well, and that's still a process for us right now.
Okay. So, I mean, when you say 3 years, 3 years is to meet what we need. So, I mean, when we look at 5 years, where we can meet what we want, or something like that.
We can, as we're continuing to take a look at that, and I think the important part is when we work together as an administrative team to look globally of what the students' needs are, and how do we enmesh both general ed and special education programming so that it's intertwined and together, then we'll be able to get a little bit more of a clearer picture of what that is.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amanda? And I'll, sorry.
We have our elementary principals here tonight, and they are going to go through a short presentation just about class size recommendations for next year in terms of additional FTE that we think may be needed in the budget for next year, and then also just give a preview of some thinking behind a new special schedule that would also involve some extra staffing too. So come on down. Yeah.
Sir.
Okay.
So I should begin by just saying I made the slides, so they're not as fancy as Dawn's, so I apologize for that. But they're just going to quickly walk us through the process and recommendations that they're making for next year. Again, I'll add the same caveat that at the next board meeting I'll try to tie all these recommendations together into a multi-year plan. But certainly class size is something that the district was focused on last year, and the focus continues this year. So I'll let you guys start.
So we meet on a regular basis as an elementary team. In February when we met, we reviewed our enrollment numbers in each class at each grade level, and we determined the outliers to make recommendations to the superintendent and the board based on the needs of each school. That's the process.
Good evening. Speaking for Sargent, I want to thank Anne Marie and the school board for helping us last year decrease our class sizes at Sargent. At this time last year, our average class size was about 26.5 kids per class. We added a section last year, which we see in our first grade, and the average class size this year is 20.5 kids. So that's a nice chunk of change. As we've talked this year so far, I also, again, I want to thank Dr. Landahl for continuing to decrease our class sizes. That's the single biggest equalizer for kids, I think. Decreasing class size, that helps narrow the achievement gap for kids. That's a big equalizer. Helps with attendance, with behavior across the board. I've had a veteran teacher say to me this year, last year and this year were the first time she had class sizes under 23 kids, 18 and 18 the past 2 years, and she says it's night and day teaching the kids. She can devote a lot more time per student, which is very helpful. We're hoping to add one more staff or section to our building, which will, again, continue to narrow that class size gap. And I've talked with Anthony D'Amato about space and some creative ways to create space, and we do have some extra spaces at Sargent to do this. So I hope we can do this. I appreciate your support, and I know the kids like the smaller classes too. It's nice to see in action.
Which grade are you thinking that's needed for next year?
Continuing with the small class sizes of first grade, we're looking at adding a section to second grade.
And possibly keeping 3 sections at first grade?
Correct.
Okay.
And the current fourth grade is broken into 3 sections, and I'd like to see that continue as those kids go into fifth grade. So we'd have 3 sections of fifth grade next year.
But that would not need an extra
No.
staff? Yeah. Okay.
No, there's just one extra staff.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
At Glenham, we currently have 3 sections at each grade level, and that would be not including the self-contained classes at first grade and fifth grade. Class size average for kindergarten is 18. For second grade, it's 19. For third grade, 23. Fourth grade is 23, and fifth grade is 22. At first grade, our average class size is 25. We have 3 sections, 2 of which are integrated sections. They both have 25 students in each class, and then the third section also has 26 students. So first grade, I know the cap, the unofficial cap for the lower elementary grades was 25, and we have definitely hit that in and exceeded in those sections. There are some concerns from the parents because we do have the integrated sections. So if any other students in the district are classified in first grade, they would join that class, and we already are at enrollment numbers that are pretty high. So at Glenham, the recommendation was for 1 full-time teacher for second grade for next year.
Okay, thank you. And there's space for that class? Okay.
Yes.
At South Avenue, we are at an average class size of 17 in kindergarten, 19 for first grade, 20 for second grade, 22 for third grade, 23 for fourth, and 23 for fifth. Last year, we had 3 sections of K1-2, 2 sections of 3-4-5. So when that second grade class graduated to third grade this year, we needed an additional teacher to cover that third grade class. That third grade team is now going to transition next year for fourth grade, so we're looking for a 1.0 increase to cover the classes that are now third grade that will be fourth grade, because now we just have 2 fourth grade classes and we'll need 3 for the next year.
Thanks. And there's space for that?
We do have a class up to that.
Well, we were really elated at JV Forrestal. We were able to add an increased section this year, allowing our third grade section to increase up to 3 sections. We know at K2 our students are learning to read, but at 3-5 they're reading to learn. So to be able to create that additional section at the third grade created the capacity and possibility for our students to learn at an increased rate. We have retirement this year, so we will not need to increase our third grade. We will just be able to absorb that in the fourth grade to keep those sections nice and small so that our teachers have the capacity to teach in the way that they've been doing thus far.
Thanks. So the one asterisk I'll put on all this is every once in a while you see a bunch of kids like leave a school at 1 grade for some random reason, and that's hard to predict. It doesn't happen all that often, but like we will always, try to look at the numbers and do its best if we do have additional staffing in the budget. We think right now this is where we need it, And elementary principals have been great about thinking forward and, already thinking about the year after this where we may need additions with that too. Just about class size in general. My previous experience in 2 districts prior to here, class size at the elementary level was a large emphasis. It started last year here in Beacon. You can see the impacts if you look at the class sizes with the budget from last year. We think these recommendations, albeit I'll sort of put these in my final budget, not final, but my budget presentation next week, but we think these class size recommendations would really help sort of get it, kind of even out some of the areas that are outliers. And I also know, I'll sort of say this too, as a parent moving into a district, which I was last year, and I was representing another parent who didn't have the access to information I did, I guess, coming in. And so class sizes were important to us moving in too. So I know this is something that every elementary parent is thinking about. And so I thank the elementary principals for putting some thought into what's their best recommendations for next year for that. We wanted to talk about specials a little bit too. And I said to them at the beginning of the meeting before I walked into exec that, you guys have this slide figured out, right? Because I will say our rehearsal time was somebody kept calling snow days. And so our rehearsal time kept getting cut into. And so we have talked about this. We've had a lot of discussions about specials. But we didn't work out exactly how we're doing it tonight, but I'm sure you guys are going to be great. So we'll talk about specials next.
I suppose I was elected about 10 minutes ago.
That's what happened when I walked away.
That's correct. Probably about a month ago, we met with Dr. Landau, Don Condello, and we started the discussion about going to a 4-day cycle with the goal of increasing opportunities for our students in the special areas, like phys ed, music, art. And what we have started to study in terms of our schedules, we're looking at having 2 phys eds, 1 art, and 1 music in a 4-day schedule for all students, K-5. Library media would be outside of the special area schedule and would sort of stand on its own. And the hope in doing this is, because we're going to a 4-day cycle, we would be increasing phys ed classes for kids, which would increase their phys ed minutes and get us closer to the state mandate for number of minutes for phys ed. One of the things that we have talked about in terms of if we do library media a little bit differently is that would allow more collaboration between our library media people and classroom teachers. That would allow for more enrichment, more STEAM, more interdisciplinary learning for kids. So those are all positives. As I said, we're all studying what these schedules might look like. We're looking at some of the things that we would need would be more PE staffing to make something like this work, and possibly more music teachers as well. So it's something we're looking at, and we tend to think that this is something that can work in each of the buildings. Michael, it may look a little bit different in each building, but going to a 4-day cycle such as this, each of the buildings begins to look much more similar. So when we're talking about equity, we're talking about opportunity, this gets us moving in that direction.
Just an additional couple things to say. Celia and a team of people put together a large grant, and I won't talk about all the grant, but a part of the grant was for the district to add instrumental music to the 4th grade for next year. And so we feel we did a good job on the grant. It's a state grant, so hopefully we'll find out soon. That's something that we'd love to get funded at least for a year or two outside of our budget just to get it started. So that's also something we're looking at. This is, I talked about this way at the beginning of the year when there were some questions about the special schedule, just a few other things. John Giametta has already worked on what this would look like for PE in terms of this increase. This would be a fairly dramatic increase with the amount of PE that students have. And as Brian said, it would get us right up to where that state minutes requirement is. Music and art, it'd be like a little percentage shifts, either up or slightly the other way. But it would be a consistent schedule for all students at the elementary level. They would all have the same thing. And having that sort of flexibility with the library media staffing, which would remain the same, we would want one staff person in that role in each of the elementary schools. That flexibility just opens up a lot of room for creativity while still providing students the opportunity to check out books and do the technology things that they do currently. But it just involves just a lot of more sort of opportunities for project-based learning and collaborative teaching between classroom teachers and the library media specialists. So this would involve, as you can see, it's obvious it would involve extra staffing. So this will also go into the big presentation on March 19th. So we are evaluating this with everything else. But we do feel, we need to make shifts to the elementary special schedule at some point. Our hope is to do it next year, but it's something that we need to do to just kind of develop that structure and consistency and get the PE minutes where they need to be. And I will say, as a team, the elementary principals are all excited about this possibility. And I think they're also really excited about the flexibility with the library media staff. Staffing as a principal, I got to experience that, and it provides a lot of creative opportunities for your school. So, so thank you all. And
I just had. So I definitely appreciate the establishment of equity amongst the buildings. I think that we've come a long way with trying to make sure that we all look the same, more in the same ballpark, especially when it comes to educating the children. My concern is how close are we to the mandate, and I believe, I can't recall dates now, but like there was a time frame that we had, or a deadline in which we have to meet the PE mandate. So if we don't meet it this year, are we still in compliance? Or will we risk kind of being, I don't know if it's sanctioned, I don't know.
I'm not aware of any sanctions with this. We have a plan to reach the minutes through activities that classroom teachers do with their students. I feel like this way, having kids go to PE more is just a more consistent and structured way to do it. But I'm not aware of like a sanction that comes with it.
I just know there was a deadline. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I didn't know if there was any we're going to get fined or.
No, there's not that. I mean, I also just, besides the minutes thing, I shouldn't base everything on the state. Active movement for young people is essential, and having it be in a PE class where we're increasing that time, I think will just contribute to the general well-being of our elementary students too. So I don't want it to just be about reaching some minutes that the state puts out there. I think it's the right thing to do. I have used this schedule in a couple of different districts I've been in. Those districts have really high quality music in our programs sort of all throughout. And so I feel like, if we're able to pull this off, I think it would kind of help with everything.
So,
Go.
The ICT classes are those. They have 2 teachers plus an aide. Is that what they're staffing?
Teaching assistant.
Okay. And do the ICT classes move up with their students, or do they stay at their current grade levels?
They move up.
They move up. Okay. So what's going to happen at Glennon then when you have 5th grade ICT classes? So they're not obviously moving up with their students. So what happens to the extra teachers that are in 5th grade for those ICT classes?
That's what Dawn figures that out.
Yeah. So we've had a lot of conversations.
Talk about where we're looking at our programming needs, our special ed programming needs, elementary-wise, and so as a staff, we have to still have that discussion.
Okay.
And as fifth grade moves on, we do take on kindergarten.
Right.
And pre-K.
But, I mean, that's sort of a-
so it sort of shifts.
Sort of a
the
guess
grade.
as to, I mean, you kind of know from some of the pre-K, but, you know.
Right.
It can kind of be more of a guess. Which
Right.
brings up my next question. I noticed each of the schools, number of classes at the kindergarten level is the same as this year. So for next year, it's the same as this year. So you're assuming roughly the same, number of students, I take it.
There is that kindergarten assumption with this whole
Yeah,
thing.
okay,
Yeah.
fine.
So obviously, if we see some major drop off in kindergarten enrollment, then we need to make shifts the other way.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are the, any extra positions that we're looking to put in the budget for next year, are those existing positions or are there positions we have to create?
These would be created.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I had a couple questions. Pre-K is not mentioned here, but I guess you can probably understand a little bit from the pre-K numbers what the kindergarten, I mean, a lot of people do full day pre-K somewhere else because they can't.
Right, because we have the half-day program, it's really hard to estimate how many students will be enrolled full day. I know, as a working parent myself, I couldn't put my child in a half-day program. So there is, I think, a large number of students. I know both sections right now at Glenham are full. We're at max for the pre-K, and it is being the half-day program. So,
So we reduce that. And then
Right.
is the pre-K program, are there any changes predicted for that next year, or is that?
The pre-K program, actually, Dawn is the coordinator for, and we've talked about, for now, right? For now, for this year. We've talked about, there is money available, but there's a whole process to go from half-day to full day, so we'd have to do a little bit more research on that. So it's something out there, but we haven't gotten to that point yet.
Okay.
Because that would change the dynamics of everything here.
And in terms of sections, pre-K sections, because didn't we?
Last year, we reduced two sections, so each of the elementary schools have at least one. Glenham happens to have two. It was based upon enrollment.
Right.
So we reallocated one of the teachers last year into an elementary position, one of the pre-K teachers.
And do we know what our pre-K numbers will be for next year yet, or that's not, it's too early to know that?
The registrar is actually starting to register now for pre-K, but what we're finding, because we offer a half-day program, we do have to have a certain number of children go to the community-based organizations. So we are getting some requests for both of those organizations to go out, because it would be a pre-K program at that location, but then they also have childcare for the second half of the day. So that's why we're not as worried, because the CBOs can absorb some of the other children.
And this, my only other question was that, so currently we're sharing 2 art teachers among the 4 elementary schools, is that right? Or 3 art teachers among?
It's 3, isn't it?
3. And that will remain the same?
We think so. Yeah.
Yeah, we're still stuck.
Got it.
My question, so the administration was working on the diversity goal in 3 parts. How does that work intersect with this, with the specials and making it equitable?
I'm not totally sure. I mean, I think this creating a special schedule that is consistent like this, that increases PE time, I think would benefit all students. I'm not sure exactly how it would get directly at that.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right, viewing the agenda, we do have a correction, or it may be a correction on new business 10. It says the same as 9.01, which is the committee reports including board comments. It should be a discussion about an RFP for insurance. It is corrected on the electronic agenda. We also have an addendum to the agenda, which we'll put at 14.01. It's resolution 031218A, and Kenny volunteered to read that, right? All right,
So resolution 031218A, Resolved that Dr. Sebring's resignation for retirement purposes effective June 30th, 2018 is hereby accepted in accordance with the terms of the separation and release agreement entered into on March 6, 2018, a copy of which shall be placed on file with the district clerk.
So that will be 14.01, which moves 14.01 to 15.01 and 15.01 to 16.01, which has to be created.
I'd like to make a motion to add a 10.02 approval of a group email for the board.
10.02?
Yep.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Comments and questions?
What is the topic?
Discussion of adding a group email.
Adding a group email, okay, thank you.
So it's for all one email. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. You. Any other agenda items for review? Hearing none, we'll go forth with the agenda. We have the student and school presentations. Any student school presentations?
Good evening. Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Susanna Lutley. I am the president of the Beacon Paraprofessionals Association, also known as the TA, Teaching Assistants Union. I am here before you this evening on the eve of the opening of negotiations to remind the board of some of our duties, to highlight our integral role within the district, and to highlight some inequalities between our contract and those of other neighboring districts. I am TA at JVF, where there are an additional 8 teaching assistants. Most of the TAs at JVF work within small, high-needs special ed classes. We also have a reading TA and a math TA who basically provide AIS instruction and or they push into classes for additional support. Within the special ed classes, we are responsible for providing individualized instructional support to our students who have a wide range of disabilities. Sometimes we are working with children who are nonverbal, and sometimes we are working with children who have high social and emotional needs. Quite often, we are called upon to substitute for our classroom teachers or provide substitute duties in other general education classes. When we substitute in our own classes, this is mainly because we understand that our children are particularly sensitive to the disruption of dealing with unfamiliar people. Throughout the district, TAs are regularly called upon to be substitutes. There are some TAs in the district who spend nearly half their time being assigned as substitutes due to the chronic shortage of substitute teachers. Whilst this might seem like a good solution, we are being removed from classes where we support some of the neediest students in the district. This also has a disruptive effect on the children, particularly when TAs are removed from their classrooms or when they can't provide the extra services that some children rely upon. I would also like to highlight the fact that AIS math and reading support at the elementary level is regularly provided by TAs. It should be noted that at the high school and middle school levels, AIS math and reading is provided by fully certified teachers. These elementary TAs are basically doing the job of a teacher for a mere fraction of the salary of a teacher. Level 3 certified TAs are also required to maintain the same level of CTLE hours as teachers, which is 100 hours every 5 years. However, we consistently come up short if we only ever attend superintendent conference days. Attendance on these days only affords us up to 18 CTLE hours per year. Teachers are frequently afforded training during school hours throughout the year, and TAs generally substitute during these trainings. If we want to keep our hours current, we have to attend workshops on our own time, and we generally have to pay for these ourselves. Again, here's another example of TAs having the same requirements as the teachers, but not receiving equal treatment. And then finally, in order to maintain one's certification, TAs must earn a minimum of 9 college credits to reach level 2 certification, and if one desires to attain a level 3 certification, a TA must earn a minimum of 18 college credits. There are also a number of TAs within this district that actually hold either a bachelor's or master's degree. Did you know that among neighboring districts, Beacon TAs can only accumulate no more than 30 sick days? Other districts can accumulate anywhere from 100 to 200 sick days before they have to sell those sick days back. Did you know that among neighboring districts, Beacon ranks the lowest in the terms of starting salary for TAs? Other districts consistently start anywhere from $2,000 to $8,000 more than Beacon. And did you know that among neighboring districts, Beacon ranks the lowest in terms of the percentage that the district contributes to one's health insurance, and all other districts offer some form of buyout? The majority of TAs in the district decline the health insurance that is offered because it is cost prohibitive. The district only offers to pay 50% at the cheapest individual rate, though they offer 4 plans of varying levels. Of the 2 or 3 TAs out of, I believe it's 58, that take the insurance, they have to take a second job because the insurance rates that they pay only leave them effectively a few dollars each pay period. Don't get me wrong. For all the disparities and inequalities within our contract, all of the TAs within the district strive to be the most professional and caring individuals that they can be. We are on the front line, calming down the aggressive child, consoling the sad child, encouraging the discouraged child. We will assist the children and support them to the best of our abilities, and we will always look out for their social and emotional well-being, always assisting them along their way to a successful school career. Long gone are the days when TAs can merely be considered bored housewives with nothing better to do. We are professionals, and we deserve to be recognized as such. I am looking forward to negotiating in good faith, and I hope that the board thoughtfully considers my remarks this evening.
Thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you.
Any other student or school presentations? Seeing none, parent groups?
Hi, I'm Juliette Harvey from South Avenue PTA.
Well, Julia, are you coming up for public comment or?
No,
Okay.
it's just to announce something that's going on.
Yeah, that's fine.
We have 2 things we wanted to make the community aware of. One is we're having our 2nd annual color run on April 14th. We did this last year. It was a huge success, and we'd like to do it again, but we wanted to make sure it was open to the whole community. We have a registration on our website right now, and the event is from 10:30 until 1:30. The run is actually from 12 until 1, but there'll be some activities prior to that. And anyone that's interested in registering can visit our website, which is southavenuepta.com. Secondly, we wanted to make the community aware that we do have some scholarships that we offer every year. They are for Beacon High School graduates that are also graduates of South Avenue Elementary School. We have 2 scholarships that are $750 each, and the applications are on our website as well, and I will be contacting the high school guidance counselors to let them know as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you for sharing. Any other parent groups? Seeing none, we're going to move to public comment. We have one person sign up, but they went in the parent group. Anybody else? Just state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Julie Shiraishi. I am a Beacon resident and the parent of a son at Sargent Elementary and one at Wombat Middle School. I come here tonight to read a resolution that the Beacon City Council and Mayor passed unanimously last week. I know that Superintendent Landau heard it because I know he was at that meeting, but I'm not sure that everyone else was able to. It is a resolution to join the National Day of Violence of Action on April 20th to protect students against gun violence. Whereas on April 20th, 2018, the Network for Public Education has organized a National Day of Action against gun violence in schools to encourage school communities to engage in acts of protest around their schools to demonstrate the school and the local community's determination to keep students safe. And whereas April 20th is the anniversary date of the shootings at Columbine High School in 1999, since Columbine, 129 people have been killed in school shootings, including the 17 students and educators were murdered in February 2018 at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. And whereas the city is committed to ensuring that schools in Beacon remain a sanctuary for teaching and learning and a safe, nurturing environment for all, and whereas the city supports legislation, regulation, and public policy intended to reduce gun violence, and whereas the city supports community action to send a message to elected state and federal officials to pass tougher gun laws. Now therefore be it resolved that the Beacon City Council hereby declares April 20th, 2018 as a National Day of Action. I brought an extra copy of that, and I'm not going to bore you and read the entire thing. But the reason I brought this to your attention tonight is Superintendent Landau released his policies and procedures for the walkouts on Wednesday, 3/14, and I can't say that I agree with all of the decisions regarding these protests, specifically for me the idea that as a parent I would have to remove my child from the school grounds if I wanted to engage in this protest. I understand that you have all faced a lot of challenges recently dealing with potential threats, weather, and the very short timeline that you are working on to come up with a policy dealing with the 314 walkouts. So I would like to look ahead to April 20th, the day that the Beacon City Council of Beacon City has designated as a National Day of Action. I felt that in your statement it was sort of an afterthought. And the only thing that you said about the April 20th walkout is that students would be punished and they would be held according to the code of conduct. And I disagree with that vehemently. I appreciate the activities that you have in place at the middle school and high school to make available to children who wish to participate to learn about civic participation as part of the memorial process, but I don't think it's enough. And I would like to say that a district father and I, James Leal Case, who's here with me, are organizing a sort of hangout space, if you will, that we've reserved the pavilion at Memorial Park on 4/20 from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. We plan to have sort of a, I'm sorry?
20 seconds left.
Sorry. Okay, we're going to have a space for kids to actually engage in the practice of living in a participatory democracy, not just the theory that they'll be learning in school. So I'll say that Patrick Maloney in his event yesterday against gun violence praised the city for the resolution.
Sorry, that's time.
Well, you'll be hearing further from us as our plans develop. So thank you for your time, and I have a copy of the resolution.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Hello. My name is James Case. I am a Beacon resident. I'm sure you remember I was here 2 weeks ago. I came to talk to you specifically to address the issue of what our district can do to support students as part of the national demonstrations about gun violence. I didn't know what to expect from you all, so I was very impressed with the statements Dr. Landau made at the podium 2 weeks ago when he said there will be no punitive actions taken against students for any demonstrations. The motion to bring this up for discussion was brought up and instead was declined, and every member of the board was given an opportunity to make a statement. And I believe, to my memory, apart from Mr. Rakowski, there were no concerns or negative ideas brought up about this. Mr. Rakowski brought up some concerns about safety. I actually remember him challenging Dr. Landau with some questions to the nature of what will the students do, how will they be safe, how will they do this, to which I was also impressed, Dr. Landau, with your response to this, which is to say the student-led. I don't know, but we're letting them take the lead. There's something positive to this. So I was surprised when I read your statement yesterday, because to communicate to the students of our district that they will be held to the code of conduct, which is, I read the code of conduct today, and in addition to describing disciplinary action, it's a disciplinary book, it also talks about character, leadership, civic duty, all of the things that we all discussed in relation to these actions, to the benefits of students speaking up for themselves. Mr. Zoff spoke to the positive psychological nature of students being able to have an outlet, to being able to express themselves, to take some agency over something that none of us have any control over. I completely respect his concerns about keeping the students safe. I think the students appreciate that more than any of us, because that's what this is about. Right? How are we going to keep them safe? So as a city, the city is declaring, as Julie just spoke, that 420 is going to be a day of action, that as a city we want to come together and support students. And I want to know, how are we going to handle that as a school district? How are we going to communicate to students that we do support them? Because telling them we're going to punish them is not support. It's the exact opposite. It's discouraging. I would like clarity on that, because I feel like the wording of being held to the code of conduct is vague. If the decision is that they will be punished, I would like for that to come for discussion publicly amongst the boards here. Yeah, I think that's what I'd say.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment?
Good evening, Jan Stark, taxpayer. Tonight you have on your agenda about a bond issue for more buses again, for a $380,000 bond. I think it's time for us as a district to start looking at contracting our transportation out. Mind you, keeping maybe a handful of buses for field trips and for athletic contests and so on. But I know it would save over $500,000 by being able to contract out. A number of other school districts do, and especially on the other side of the river. Most places would contract with, would hire our own drivers, they would buy our buses, they would utilize our bus garage and so on. But I think it's time. Every year we're constantly putting up a resolution for over $300,000 for more buses, and it just gets to the point where it gets to be too expensive. Another point is something I touched on last time I was here. A few years ago, there were calls about corruption between the superintendent, board president, and the teacher. Just like this year, one can say the same about the current president and the teacher that was paid to coach a JV tennis team that did not exist. So since my question wasn't answered, I guess it wasn't put in the form of a question last time, so it will be this time. I want to know what efforts were or are being made to recoup the money that was paid to an individual for a team that didn't exist. Okay, and whether you want to look at it as an assistant position, in a contract, teacher's contract, there is no position as a JV tennis coach or an assistant coach. This is part of the money that we keep throwing away. And I'd like to know where we stand on that and if we're going to recoup that money. Thank you.
Thank you. So Jan, I would just reply to your comment about corruption with myself and an employee of the district to show me the proof. Besides that, you have nothing. So I'm not worried about what you're insinuating.
You have something. The board
passed. I'm one of 9. Huh? Right? I'm one of 9. All right?
You create the agenda, Anthony.
And do you hear me quite often ask anything else to be added to it?
Absolutely.
The comment's over. If you had your chance for a comment, I commented back, Jan. It's not a dialogue.
Well-
Thank you.
Can't be good for one and not the other.
All right, superintendent report.
There's some.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sure.
Only guilt, Anthony. Only guilt gets that response.
Good evening. My name is Anna Sullivan. I'm the parent of a second grader at Sargent. I haven't been able to come to the last few Board of Ed meetings. I appreciate Dr. Londell's communication with parents around the study of school safety facilities, the safety of the facilities. I know that we're all on heightened alert because of the most recent school shooting. And my understanding was that there'd been some discussions with all of the schools to kind of lock the schools down more consistently. But just this morning, and because of the time change, we were running a bit late for school. And I know that's a very vulnerable time of the day when a lot of people coming and going. But I was led into my son's school by another parent leaving, not by a security personnel. The person who was working security was busy trying to work the new badging system and was in a different room, and it just wasn't a secure environment. I know that everyone's working their hardest to make sure that our kids and staff are safe, but I feel like we're far from being there, and it's very hard as a parent. You're a parent. A lot of you have been parents or are parents in the district, and you know how hard it is in this climate to leave your kid in a school where schools have become a national target. So I felt very uneasy going back to work today, just knowing that anyone could really walk into the school. I saw the sign on the door that there are new sign-in procedures, but I feel like that's just not adequate. I know that we've got consultants in the district studying ways to improve security. So a quick question is, when is that study anticipated to wrap up? How will the results be communicated? I understand that with security you can't communicate all of the results because it would void the security element of it, but as parents we really need to have, I guess, more peace of mind that more is being done to lock down our school facilities.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing none, moving to the superintendent's report.
The security audits from Alteris Consulting began today at one of our buildings. It will conclude, obviously further snow may impact this, but a little mood lighting for the superintendent.
I don't know how to work that thing.
Mike, can you turn him up a little bit?
I'm just going to wait. Hey.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Alteris started today. The audit that they do is a 3+ hour walkthrough of the building with the principal and security staff, and so they look at everything. They look at both sort of the physical structure of the building, but they also look at how things like you described, like if they're happening or not. So that the study will conclude on March 22nd. I anticipate we have a board meeting on April 9th, and at the April 9th board meeting I wanted to share with the board recommendations for next year regarding security and safety based off that audit. It will just be initial recommendations because I know like our board facilities committee may need to kind of process some of the stuff if it's facility related. The other really, I think, powerful step we'll take with the consulting group is each building safety or emergency response team will be doing a full day training in the next 2 months. So it'll probably be April, early May that they'll be doing this full day training. When we looked into working with this consulting group, we talked to other districts, And some of the things we heard was that the training they do is it's not like a boring 6 or 7 hours. It's really well done. And so then you'll have, this core group of people in each building who are really well tuned to all aspects of what you're talking about and other things too. Not that we don't have that already, it'll just be even, a greater improvement. So at the April 9th meeting, I'll talk about the things that we can talk about in public. Some of the things when you have something like this, some of it is confidential just for safety reasons, but there will be some aspects we can share publicly. We really like the consulting group already, and we expect good things from them. And at that meeting on April 9th, I'll talk about any budget-related security things for next year that I want to get into the 18-19 budget. In regards to the student walkouts and protests, we spent a lot of time. We did have some interruptions with weather and whatnot, but we spent a lot of time putting the plan together for March 14th. I feel really good about the plan for March 14th. I've also received a lot of positive feedback on the plan for March 14th. So one of the things we want to see is we want to see how March 14th goes. I'll try to spend most of my time sort of between the middle school and the high school on that day, just observing and helping out. One of my reservations about April 20th is just March 14th date was one that seemed very specific, and it seemed like something that we could do a lot of planning around. By specific, I mean the intent of it was to do either some sort of activity or a walkout for 17 minutes to honor the victims of Parkland. April 20th, at least from the stuff I've read online, is more vague. And so I'm always open to relooking at something if things become more concrete about April 20th. So that will be something that I evaluate. I think that what we want to do is just really look at March 14th and see how that goes. And we'll be sharing that, I guess, at the next board meeting too, just to report out on that. Just in terms of upcoming things, I talked about the April 9th board meeting. We'll have sort of a safety security focus. At the March 19th board meeting, we've had great budget presentations all along. We had excellent ones tonight. And so we're going to take all that information, plus some other things that we've been working on, and try to really start to make concrete our planning for the 18-19 school budget and also future years. We're going to look at the money that we think is available to us right now, and also create some contingency plans if state aid increases between now and when we actually adopt the budget. That typically doesn't happen before a time like March 19th. It happens a little bit later in the process. So in that presentation, we'll kind of be doing it in layers. Like, this is what we can afford now. If we get increased state aid, we're going to want to add these things in, and we'll want lots of feedback from the board at that presentation. But obviously, if we're looking at all the wonderful budget reports or presentations we've had over the last few weeks, we have a lot of things we want to accomplish. We won't be able to do it all in 1 year, but we want to get a plan in place so we can accomplish a lot of it or all of it in the next 3 to 4 years. So that's what we'll start putting out there on March 19th. Just one last thing, there have been some questions about snow days. At the last board meeting, I think it was 70 degrees that day, and I said something about winter being over, and I just completely ruined everything. I don't think those words changed it, but we there is something we do want to clarify with the board tonight. The calendar that was adopted last year talked about having 5 snow days, and then the teacher contract was settled and ratified after that calendar was adopted, and in that teacher contract there's 6 built-in snow days. We never went back and changed the actual 17-18 calendar. So the 17-18 calendar does and will have 6 snow days. We have used 6, and that's all I'm going to say. I have no comment about tomorrow. And so we'll be discussing that in a little bit. But once we settle it tonight with the board, we'll put out communication to families just so there's a common understanding of what we're doing with snow days. If we do go beyond 6, the first makeup day is Friday, May 25th. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Board committee reports, including board comments. Annie, you want to go first?
Sure.
Me and Noah actually went around asking about the March 14th walkout, because we wanted some student feedback on it. And there's pretty like a good amount of people who are interested in it, but we were more concerned if they were okay with being inside the auditorium or walking out, and they were just satisfied with the fact that we were actually trying to do something. So all of your efforts are appreciated. And then on behalf of me and Noah too, we just want to thank all of you for your efforts in trying to create a safer environment for everyone in the district. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mike?
Sure. I'll start off. The Facilities and Operation Committee meeting is this Wednesday, March 14th at 7 p.m. One of the things we'll be talking about during that meeting is we're planning to have this presentation on the different types of turf fields that are out there. So the intent is we're going to talk about it during the facilities meeting, and then next Monday at the board meeting we would also have a presentation for the rest of the board, so you could also see the the different options that are out there. What is the turf? What does it look like, and how's it made up?
From our engineers, correct?
From the engineers will be in here to do that for the whole board next Monday. So that'll be good. As far as the budget, I do appreciate all the details going into the budget presentations. I also like at least recognizing that there are more things that we want and need, and that maybe we can look at a multiple year time frame to try to spread them over. One thing that would be good is if we say, we have budget limitations, and here's our, beyond those budget limitations, here would be the priority of things we may still be interested in, and here would be the impact. Because we may want a second language, maybe just hanging on the edge, and we may decide, hey, we may want to either shuffle around or really consider adding that extra language or something like that. So instead of just having a hard cutoff, it'd be nice to see what the things are below the line and the impact of what they would be.
Sure.
So that would be really beneficial. Question regarding safety. I was very happy, well, not happy, but I was appreciative that one of the parents stood up to talk about, observations at the schools as far as, entering and questions about safety. So that's really good, and hopefully we take that back, because that's something we can take back immediately to the buildings to say, reinforce our procedures, making sure we tighten up. We can do that right now.
Yeah.
So we need to grasp anything we can do right now to tighten up in those areas. And I do look forward to the Altaris reviews and recommendations, so we can feed it into the facilities committee and anything we can do from that standpoint. A question, I know we have a safety committee, which I think Ken, you're the board member on. So is that the committee that is overseeing, or do they own the safety issue, and are things being discussed at that safety?
Yeah.
Is that the committee that is
Yes.
primarily discussing all this?
Yeah.
Okay, I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure. I wasn't sure.
And F&O committee's at 6 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock, because there's going to be a discussion with the engineers and the architects later after that.
Thank you for reminding me. So, Facilities and Operations Committee Wednesday at 6 p.m.
Correct.
Thank you. So that's all I had on my list for today.
Meredith?
So let's see. Wednesday at 5:30 is the next Chevron committee meeting. This is actually a big public meeting where they're going to present a document that they've created based on the history of Glenham, the current population, state of Glenham, and some of these design charrettes that the community has participated in. I am hoping that we will have some language from our attorney by then to give them, that will be added as an addendum to this document about how to measure the student impact, how many children might be moving into the potential development there, and how exactly to measure that, given our our recent experiences.
So Meredith, can we just expand on that a little bit,
Yes.
saying that when we were talking to the city of Beacon with the Edgewater, there was some studies that our attorneys were saying should have been done and using the per pupil cost, correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, the lawyer for Edgewater did use the study, but used it sort of to their benefit, to make the numbers work for them. So they,
I'm not trying to rehash Edgewater,
Right.
but just going forward,
Yeah.
the Fishkill, the Chevron, and so forth have been willing to have us share language with them.
They have been willing, and this document, it's not a legal document, and I actually am not totally clear how binding it is, but I think it's promising in the sense that, going forward, at least these expectations will be stated and the community can be aware of it and push back against it if the developer does not.
So can I just say for the public that I sent an email out to, Meredith sent an email out to the board. We forwarded that to our attorney to come up with some language for that we want to share with the Chevron committee as to what our expectations would be with the development.
Yes, and basically what it's going to say is please use the Rutgers multiplier, which is a commonly accepted rule for studying student impact, or population impact with new development. But there are several different parts of it, and so that's why I wanted our lawyer to write it so that the language is very clear.
Yep. And the board is okay with that, from my understanding.
Yes.
And then it will also say to when measuring the cost per pupil, use the entire budget, not just pulling parts of the budget and divide it by the total number of students.
I just want to make sure that the board was.
Yeah. So good on that.
Okay.
So that everyone's invited. Dinner is served at 5:30. The other meeting is Tuesday. Is it curriculum?
Tuesday the 20th. Yes.
Tuesday the 20th is the next curriculum committee meeting at 2:30. I actually cannot attend. I don't think I have an unexpected schedule change, so I don't think I'll be there, but it could change again. So.
Is any other board member willing to go in Meredith's place?
It's hard for people who have regular jobs.
What day?
Tuesday the 20th,
Tuesday.
2:45?
2:30.
2:30.
I have to check my schedule.
Well, if not,
If not,
we'll
just
fill
so
you.
you'll update us.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think the budget presentations have been really good. I really appreciate keeping class sizes a priority. I think it can make a difference for all kids. I think it's the best. As Brian Archer said, it really is an equalizer. Someone was recently asking me about a talented and gifted program, and I'm not an educator, but I said I think that small class sizes actually make that not as necessary. I think and I think it's really important for kids to be educated together if possible. I attended Saturday Zumba with Lori Edelman at the middle school. I'm a little sore from Estelle. It was really fun, so I'm very grateful to her for doing that. She put a lot of effort into that fundraiser, and I think she'll do it again, and I hope more people will come because Zumba was really fun. It was my first time. It was really fun. And the other fun thing I attended in the district was music in our schools. Jeff Haynes, I don't know if this is a last minute addition, but Jeff Haynes, who's been working with the 7th graders, presented with a few students and Mr. Castaldi, and I think a teacher's aide. I'm actually not sure of the other teacher's name, but a couple of the students recited poems that they wrote with him, and it was incredible. It was really, really incredible. I hope that we can get these poems and put them on the website since we don't have a newspaper, and I am passively, aggressively noting again that we don't have a newspaper because we need a place to put all of these amazing things that are happening with these students. And everyone I think should read or hear what they're saying because there's some very strong feelings coming out that I think would be, just important for us to think about deeply. Also, the jazz band, it's been great to see the middle school jazz band grow. They've quadrupled since I started attending this concert. The high school jazz band is really small, but they made played a song that one of the students had composed, which was really great. So the entire thing was really super and really very well attended by parents too. I went, was that yesterday? Sean Patrick Maloney, Town Hall.
I share all the parents' concerns about what's going on, and the town hall was really interesting. I felt very, it was eye-opening just at that everyone has a different solution to this problem. And for me, I feel like I had to keep backing up to find where we all agree, and I think where we all agree is that we want our children to be safe. One step forward and you start to go in all these different directions. I believe very strongly in stricter gun control. I think that it's not a huge ask, and I think it would make our job in the schools a lot easier in terms of keeping children safe. But I appreciate that Melanie held it, and I thought, and it was actually, even though there were so many different opinions, it was very civil. It was really, people were able to talk about something that's very emotional in a very calm way. So that was hopeful. That was a little bit hopeful. I think that's it. Yeah. That's it.
Sure.
Well.
All right, Anthony, before she changes her mind.
Done for now.
All right. Good evening. I want to wish everyone a happy belated International Women's Day. I also wanted to encourage this district to continue to work with community leaders on projects. As I was doing some research on a topic, I had a reminder of the Roundabout I'm Tired project that was last year. So, I'm hoping some of those concerns that the students had are still being carried forward and addressed. I do apologize, I did miss the technology committee meeting last Tuesday. I had a 3 o'clock meeting that ran over, and I can't make it next Tuesday either because I have a 3 o'clock meeting as well, so I do apologize. I don't know when the next technology committee is, but I'm sure I'll get a notice on that. The diversity committee from last week was canceled due to snow, so we'll pick it up next month. I did go to Sean Patrick Maloney's town hall in Poughkeepsie 2 weekends ago. I didn't make the one in Beacon. Couldn't find parking. Sorry. And I did hear some eloquent students from other districts asking for gun control. I did hear and read the resolution that was passed by the City Council last Monday, and I sent it to the entire board by email. So thank you on that. And I have not been shy in expressing my own First Amendment rights on issues, but I struggle with the fact that as a school district, we don't have the express authority to engage in political activities. I'm personally still struggling with that, and I'm sure a lot of us may be in the same situation. Thank you.
Bill?
Sure. I attended the Dutchess County School Board Association meeting that was last week. The main topic that was discussed was the budgets of the various school districts. One of the things that we were just talking about is the tax cap thresholds for each district, and they do vary depending on each district's circumstances. So most of the tax caps were ranging from, one district was 2.3, one was 2.34, one was 2.53, one was 3.33, and of course we came in as the highest with the 3.67. So they were all jealous of us. We all also talked about, everybody talked about, what were they doing as far as, were they going to be cutting programs, were they going to be adding programs? And so it was nice for me to talk about the fact that we were not cutting things, we were looking at adding staff and programs in the district. Most of the districts are, I think, in pretty good shape this year, but there were a couple of districts who did have to are looking at certain cuts. So I guess we can count our blessings that things are going well here from a financial perspective. The next Dutchess County School Board Association meeting will be the first Thursday in April. The main topic will be foundations that support school district, and so we do have a foundation here. We have the Beacon Arts and Education Foundation that does support some of our art programs that we have here. And so anybody who has a program, the school district has a program where has been asked to just kind of talk a little bit about it at that meeting. So I did ask Meredith, and she has a background in that to attend the next meeting. Those districts don't have a program are interested in, what does it take to start one? How do they function? How do school districts like them? And so that we'll be listening for that as well as coming up with our own opinions on how it's working here.
Great. Thank you, Bill. Greg.
Thank you. I also attended that Music in Our Schools concert, and I was very impressed also with the poetry rap with percussion accompaniment that Jeff Haynes led with those students, as well as all the performances by the bands. I did notice that this was a premiere of a piece which Mr. Head had participated in commissioning, along with a number of other districts. That I don't know if that's been done before, but that's very auspicious that we would help create new music for band. So that was, if not the first performance, certainly one of the first. Nice to do a premiere. I did notice that there's a very large number of students in the elementary band program. Then you look at the roundabout and the numbers decrease if you go grade by grade, if you try to allocate it by grade. Then it's less when you get to the high school. This is a concern. I'm not offering any solutions, but I do want to mark it as a concern. Why are we having such a drop-off? I would like to say that in answer to the point that was raised about no board comments about the proposed walkouts and observances of the Parkland event, that most of us were waiting and aware that Dr. Landau was going to be making some plans after consulting with the various members of the administration. So we're basically waiting to see what he came up with. And now that he's done that, we can all look at it and comment on it. My comment is I think the plans for 314 are quite good, and I'm pleased to see that, well thought out, and it's a teachable moment as well. I do think, in light of the City Council having picked up on the April 20th date, and in light of our desire to forge a better relationship with the Beacon City Council, we would be remiss if we simply did nothing after they adopted that resolution. So, as Dr. Landau said, we're open to looking at what we might do going forward, and we have some time to think about that, and I hope we do. As to the bus purchase issue, I will be happy, if nobody else wants to offer the resolution tonight on spending money to buy buses, and I would be no interest at all in contracting out. I'll tell you that right now. And I think that I've seen sales pitches, and I know where they go and what they do after they get you in the bag. So I'm not impressed with that. I think we need to have good equipment. These are the vehicles that our students ride on, and if our professional staff thinks they need to be replaced, I think I will be with them. So that's my comments for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Judy?
All right, so the policy committee meeting met. On your agenda this evening, you have to approve a first and waiver second reading for adoption of policy 4772, which is graduation ceremonies. That comes from a recently enacted state law that school boards should establish and adopt procedures to allow students to participate in the graduation ceremony and related activities of their 9th grade cohort if they earn their either a career development and occupational studies commencement credential, which is known as the CDOS, or the skills and achievement commencement credential. So that's why we're asking that, so that way we can be up to date with our policy for that. Other policies on the agenda this evening are due to just updating as we're trying to continue to go to update. Some of these policies that were brought forward were based on discussions with the district as to things that they needed to move forward. The homeschooled students policy was brought back to the policy committee meeting to see if it was going to be open for discussion, and at this time it's not going to be reopened and it's going to stand as is. We are looking at some sample student volunteer policies, if not at the March 14th at the next policy committee meeting. So our next meeting is actually on March 14th at 8:15. Thanks, Mike.
We moved the facilities earlier, so we didn't impact you, so.
He's at 6, but I think it's too late. Can't put out numbers.
No, because I got, like, you guys got all this stuff coming, right, after.
What was that?
No,
You were at 8:15 typically, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we moved his up to 6 o'clock, so it wouldn't impact to have a later
So
day.
I would have like a 9 o'clock start time.
Yeah.
That's right.
We're looking
That was
out
one of
for
the
you.
options, but we said no. That would not be
Thank
fair.
you. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Mike was actually the one that pointed out I was willing to go to 9:15 for the policy.
Thank you, Mike.
Got you covered.
Kenya.
So the Public Relations Committee was scheduled to meet on the 8th, and it was canceled due to the weather. We will resume in April, and keeping in mind that Thursdays is not a good day for you, I think that we should try to coordinate something to include you. So I don't know, where Anthony, do you have a date yet in terms of diversity?
I was looking at the first Tuesday, but I haven't pulled the members of
First
the committee.
Tuesday, the 3rd?
The first Tuesday of April, but I haven't pulled the committee members.
All right, do you know when you're gonna do that? So this way I can just kind of piggyback off of you.
Yeah, I can do it right now.
So with that said, Mondays are usually a tough day for me. And so on March 5th, I was fortunate enough to have spend some time with JVF. And I was just elated, like being at JVF with Ms. Baez and the teachers there and the students. Like it just brought me so much joy to be in the presence of such a positive atmosphere. Saluting the women at the school, just being among them. Like I don't know what to say. I mean, this morning I woke up and I was like, Dad, I wish today was March 5th, so that I could do that all over again. So I just want to thank you, Ms. Baez, for inviting me. I try to make it to all the school things because I just love the kids. And when you see the kids in action and you see the teachers that care and the work that they put in, it tells me that I'm sitting in this chair and it's worth it. It's all worth it. So I just want to thank you guys for that. I also want to give some shout outs to some student wrestlers. Joe Maldonado, I believe he made All-Star. And I believe Durrani Haynes, who I always shout out and bother at church, also made state champion. He makes us proud and he's very humble. So I love to see people who are achieving great things and then they're humble with it, because that means that greater is to come from them. So they are setting the example and the tone of what other students should aspire to be. So I just want to thank him. I just want to thank Jeff Haynes, and I want to thank the school district for supporting his activity to come to Beacon. Other districts are blessed with his presence on a consistent basis, and I am blessed with it because he actually plays the drum at my church. There's something about him becoming a part of the drum. So if anybody has watched Jeff play, you know that he is not just a fly-by-night person, and that drum is what he totally believes in. He also believes in the children, and he's totally vested in learning from them as he shares what he's experienced. So it is my hope that this program will continue and expand, and it's just received so much positive feedback that I can't see it doing anything else. So I'm grateful for that. I just want to thank the coaches that worked with Durrani and Joe. I don't want to leave them out because I think that they're important in the success of the students as well. I have April is the month of military children. So last April we participated in Wearing Purple to support the military children that are still here in district and their family members are away. I learned that the family member is back, right? And so, I'm just asking the board if you think that we should try to reach out, I guess, to the family. Anthony would do that. I'm nominating him. And ask them to come, and maybe we could, represent the purple for them, and then just have like some cupcakes and coffee for them to bring them back. As a sister of a brother who served 30 years in the military, and he's gone through several wars, it was a strain on my family and me as a teen to have him fight fighting this war, and his return was always important to me. And so other military families, I feel what they feel, especially when you're a mother or a father leaving your children. So celebrating this would you know, make me happy. And if y'all don't want the cupcakes, I'll just bring them anyway. So I don't know what you guys think.
So I think what Kenya's asking is, last year we had a board meeting where we acknowledged the families of people that are serving in the military when we wore purple. So we have 2 board meetings in April. I think that we can expand on us, besides us just wearing purple. Maybe we can have Dr. Landau or Cecilia, someone reach out to the building principals and see if we can identify families of students that are in the military and see if they're away or have served, and then invite them personally to the board meeting to acknowledge it. Would that be something that the board would be willing to do?
What board meeting are you designating?
I would probably say, just to get the information and stuff, probably the second one in April, so we can plan appropriately and it's not just patch meal together by the time we get the information from the building administration. And then, you know, we could plan and then we could develop a little ceremony. So is the board okay with that? I've seen nodding of yeses. All right, so if you guys could reach out to the building principals to kind of see what families and stuff they can identify, and maybe reach out to the teachers so they can articulate it. That'd be great. Yeah, you set that in motion, Kenya. Good job. Did you have anything else? No. Okay. All right. I just I don't have any more comments for tonight. It's springtime and the snow's still here. Baseball season's upon us. I know that the varsity sports have been had their tryouts and so forth, and it never fails. Once they get the team set, it snows. So that's one reason why the spring training's in Florida and Arizona. Welcome to Northeast Baseball. All right. So we do have 2 topics of new business. Anthony added one about discussion of the whole board email, and I had added one to the agenda about insurance. So we'll go with the insurance one first. I think it'll just be, both of them I think are easy conversations. So I asked Anne Marie when was the last time that the district had set out an RFP for insurances. Currently we have NYSAR, and there is another company that does provide insurances to school districts, and it is I'm just pulling it up, the Utica National Insurance Company. Anne Marie insinuated to say that since she's been here, we haven't gone through an RFP for insurances. So it's just fiscally responsible to see if our rates are still current and to see what the insurance companies offer. So I just wanted to have a discussion with the board to see if we agree on going forth with an RFP for school insurance.
Which insurance are you talking about? I mean, we have multiple insurance carriers for different products, so what are we talking about? Health insurance?
General liability.
General liability,
General
okay.
liability. And we currently have NYSAR.
Right.
And the other one that I believe covers school is Utica National Insurance
Those are really the only 2.
that do it. So
Is it just liability, or is it fire also?
That's all included, so liability, fire.
Various casualties.
Yes. It's the same.
I think I would be fine with moving forward with an RFP.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm fine with the RFP. I just don't know if we need to see the terms of the RFP, or how does that get determined?
well, I'll ask Anne Marie to reach out to her attorneys to see if there's a boilerplate as to what it would encompass, and then once we get that, it could be shared with us, and then we can put it out there.
And how do we evaluate the results of the proposals that come back? The lowest bid?
Requests for proposals do not need to be the lowest bid.
Okay.
So some things are specific.
So there's going to be a scoring process, some sort of review committee or something to score them?
I think the board would review it as a whole. It's a board decision if they want to continue to go forth with it.
That's what we did when we got the RFPs for the search committees, for the search firms. We all read it and talked about it. I think that's it.
The RFP process is similar, it's just that it's insurance that's not my area of expertise. That's kind of was deferring to Anne Marie with the questions and so forth. But I think, I know as a homeowner, I look at my insurance and go market for every 3 to 5 years to see if there's anything that could be, enhance their coverage better and so forth. So us not doing it in 11 years, I know that we've been recently going through and looking to see. I think it can't hurt us to go through it.
You said there's one other company. Do we know if there might be any more than one other?
I'm only aware of the two. I know at NISBA, they only had the two as well. So at the convention that we went to, there was the two that they were there. I'm not aware of, and it seems like Anne Marie's not aware of any others besides the two.
They're specific to school districts. That's the issue, they specialize.
What about other types of insurance that we have, like workman's comp?
Workman's comp is a cooperative that we are part of, so that would be a little bit more difficult to do because we are with the other 13 districts. Health insurance is negotiated in the contract, especially, so that's a little bit more difficult. Yeah, it's a little more difficult. We have an additional clerical person in central office who's been really good about getting more information in about insurance and helping me deal with the insurance broker. So we're trying to do all of the others. We have life, we have eye, that kind of thing.
So we're good? Do we need a motion to go forth with the RFP?
I think
Or
we
is it just a consensus?
Just tell me to do it.
All right, go forth with the RFP. All right, the second new business item was a discussion on the whole BOE email. Anthony?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead with a group email that represents all my members of the board.
So, I have a question. So my question is that, so will we still have individual email addresses, or they would get rid of that?
No, we still have individual email addresses.
Oh, okay.
It's just a group email to make it easier to talk among each other, the public to reach out, not miss anybody out, not misspell someone's name, not mention any names.
People just have an option to choose the
No, that's
group
good.
one.
I just
It
wanted
would
to
be
make sure
like
on that.
BCSD, Board of Ed,
I do have a fear that it will increase communication amongst email, and that's what I do not want to have happen. I want the conversation to happen in public and so forth, so I just worry that if it is easier, that it would be more readily available to just start a candid conversation via email. So I just want to make the board cautious of that we do not have that practice.
I still think it's a good idea.
I don't disagree. I think it's a good idea. I just think that we need to be cautious of that piece, as always with. All right. So can you look into that, Matt or Anne Marie?
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy. We will.
Okay. All right. Great.
Was that a motion, though?
Yeah, I made a motion.
You made a motion to add it to the agenda, so.
Yeah, then I just made a motion in my first comment.
I'll second the motion.
Craig seconded the motion to add it.
No, it was, I made a motion that we establish a group email that will include all 9 members of the board.
Craig seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I didn't think we needed to make a motion for it. We were just asking to do it. I didn't see any disagreement with it. All right, unfinished business. We have one item on unfinished business. When was it, Meredith? Last Monday, March 5th.
Yes.
At 5:30, there was a subgroup of the board and a subgroup of the city council, along with the mayor, Anthony Ruggiero, the business official, Anne Marie, and Matt. Met and we discussed communication, tax cap, development. Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Did you want to summarize that conversation? You could give your understanding, I'll give my understanding, and Kristen was there as well, so but
Yeah.
this is here tonight.
Sure. Do you want to go first?
I thought the conversation was well, the communication aspect. It was Dr. Landahl and Anthony Ruggiero have been communicating on a weekly basis. There was expression that the Beacon PBA has been very cooperative in understanding and communicating and helping out the district. We were all thankful for that. Tax cap, I thought that I don't know what assessor, was she the city assessor?
She's the accountant.
The city accountant was there, provided information that I think was helpful to some people. It was about the tax cap. It wasn't anything really alarming. It's just how they get about and go about the tax cap. And the formula, she shared a formula with Kristen. I know that she handed it to Kristen for that. Development piece, there was some conversation. about how we just want to be abreast. I know that I brought up that I hope that the city would use the per pupil cost, the full per pupil cost, and not just the instructional cost. And then there was some conversation, prior to that about the SRO and stuff like that, and some of the informal history of the Beacon Police Department involved in the city schools. So.
Yeah, I think it started out with us thanking the city for the assistance that the police department has given us in the last couple of weeks. It's been invaluable, obviously, and did lead into Randy giving a little bit more of history that maybe we had talked about a little bit when we talked about the SRO, but it felt, you hearing it obviously with different ears now. So it was interesting to hear that about the SRO, and Randy was very gracious in saying that the SRO is still available to the district if the district decides to use it.
He made it quite clear that it's a district decision, that
Yeah.
he's ready, willing, and available to provide an SRO if the district wanted to go that way.
Yeah.
And that he'll respond to any calls that they get from the school.
Which was very comforting.
Yep.
And then the tax cap, I think we agree on that. I don't know exactly how the city would move. Well, Randy said that it's not really his job or the council's job to decide what the cost per pupil formula should be. It's really the planning board. So I don't know exactly how we go about communicating that with the planning board. I also don't know how the planning board undoes a precedent that they set by the decision they made with Edgewater. But I think it was important to state that. I appreciate you bringing that up at the meeting. We also talked about the city working together with the city, having more of this working group talking about shared services and things like that. That was met with less enthusiasm, I would say, by the city. I think that they feel like they have a great relationship with Matt and Anne Marie, and that communication is going really well, and they don't need the elected officials meddling in their stuff, which I get. I do understand that. Nonetheless, I'm sure that there will still be some interest in that, and it was interesting to think about it that way. Think about how we can work with the city on various things. The council member Jody Macredo had just been to a meeting with the Quality Education Alliance. I always get AQE, Alliance for Quality Education, which I think is a really important organization thinking about education. So if nothing else, hopefully we'll be sharing some information between us. But in general, I'm glad we sat down together, and I think it is important to do every once in a while. There's a lot. This is a fast-changing city right now, and I think a fast-changing district too. So we need to keep the lines of communication open.
And I was fine, so I had a different perspective. I was fine as long as they're communicating with the district administration.
Yeah.
Then I think that means.
Yes, you were in the camp of.
That the CEO and the
Back
district
out.
officials utilize it with
Got
the
it.
city.
So
message
So I get that you guys kind of talked about the line of communication or discussed communication, but was there anything specific to communication that occurred at this meeting? Because I do have some concerns, but I want to hear what you guys got from me.
It was expressed that Anthony Ruggiero and Matt and/or Anne Marie are talking on a weekly basis, correct, Matt?
Yeah, it's not completely formal, but we're communicating all the time. Usually it's more than weekly.
Yeah, and I don't think you guys need to formalize how often you talk, because things are going to come up, especially right now. It seemed like everyone, Matt, Anne Marie, Anthony Ruggiero felt very much like they felt comfortable calling each other when they needed to, and that they communicated very well.
It's just that most recently, the February 5th meeting that I reviewed from the City Council, I did have some concerns about that, and so I want to make sure that representation of what was presented at that meeting is not the relationship that we're developing with the city council moving forward. Like, I see us as trying to be open. I think that a lot of things have transpired in this district in the last 3 years. And we're trying to move beyond that. But I think that every time there's a situation that's a reminder of what was, it causes us to go back to that place of finger pointing. And so I'm going to say what my mother would always say to me is that when you're pointing one finger at somebody, remember there's a thumb and 3 fingers pointing back at you. So there's some ownership that you must take for your behavior. So in terms of communication, I'm glad that we're establishing this and we're moving forward, but I think that that February 5th meeting spoke volumes to me that I don't really want to, I want to make sure that we're set apart from that. I found that some parts of it to be very negative. I think that sometimes when people come in here and they talk about, certain issues that transpired in the past that may not have any substance to it, it makes people overly sensitive to just the situation. Like, there's some finger pointing without support. And at the council meeting, again, somebody said something to me that didn't have any substance, but they're a council person and they said it. And so there was some communication there that went on that to me was inappropriate and not representing what we as a school board really are trying to build with the city. And so if you guys are telling me that it was all great when you went there, if you look at the February 5th meeting, it would definitely cancel out the greatness, in my opinion. I'm only one of 9. But that's what I gathered from it. So I just wanted to know if you guys touched on that, and I spoke to that in high volume. So
When I was there, we didn't speak specifically about February 5th.
I think that we need to. We don't need to have, in my opinion, we don't need to repeat a February 5th. If we're moving forward and we're trying to build on positive, right, then we definitely don't need a February 5th to continue 2 years after the craziness.
It was not brought up. To me, I felt that there was nothing to really go on from the February 5th meeting, to be honest. It didn't feel productive. I do want to improve our relationship, and I felt like it was more productive to just stick to the issues that we had talking about at the time.
I mean, when you're involved in it, you would not want to go back to it, is my thought process. And again, I'm not trying to perseverate over it. I'm trying to speak to the fact that we really should speak and say, like, we've moved beyond that, like, where we're trying to grow. So I don't want a repeat of February 5th. To ignore that happened, to me, I don't know, doesn't bring about good practice. It may bring it on again, but who's to say? I'm going to go with the people that were involved in it.
Just for clarification, the February 5th you're talking about is Randy accusing the Board of corruption?
And Randy didn't say corruption. If you want to say who said corruption, somebody else said that, as far as I remember from the video. But you know what video I'm talking about.
Okay, no, I just want to make sure that's the video we're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about.
I think, if that was happening regularly, like there's some sort of let's bag on the Board of Ed minutes in every council meeting, I would feel that would need to be addressed. But I think that was something spoken in a moment of anger, and so it seemed like there was a lot going on, and I guess I didn't take it personally.
Well, I would expect that if he had such strong opinions as to state it the way he did when you look at that video, that he would have the obligation, or internally, or the ethics, to come and speak to the Board of Education, or at least the president, to say, hey, I see this kind of thing going on, so we can address it, right? So I would expect that out of him.
Right. I mean, I think, yeah, like I said, I think that if that was something, if those kind of comments continue, it's something that needs to be addressed. It didn't seem worth it to me.
So what I want to say is, every time someone goes to a meeting at the council and they mention the fact that they refer back to us as the transparency and the lack of transparency and following the system that the school board did, it places people in a position to become defensive, as if they're doing something wrong. I mean, clearly Randy states that he was doing what he is supposed to be doing. He's within his rights to do what he did. So I'm not really questioning that. I'm just saying that, I mean, you kind of talking it down a little bit, and I just want to say that if someone brings it up, I've been in places that in the supermarket someone's brought it up, and then people become defensive. So No, it may not be talked about all the time, but it does exist, and we can't ignore it. So I'm not saying that we need to kind of like, hit Randy over the head with it. I'm just saying, like, we're on his side. Like, we're trying to build a relationship that's positive moving forward. And so I think that February 5th was not nice, in my own opinion, and I thought that we would say something about it. That's all. But since there's no need, and those of you who were involved went and didn't see a need to address it, then I guess,
I did call Randy up after that meeting because I heard about it and then I watched it, but I called him up as a personal person, not as the board president, but then I did switch hats and say, I hope if there was something that was major concern that you would bring it to our attention, and it was not. So, I mean, I think if you take the conversation out of context, it could go many different ways, but if you watch the video in context, there was a question about the appointment of the police chief, and I guess someone from the community spoke out about the great job we did with the superintendent search, and that they should follow something similar to that. And so, he pointed out 14 years of instability on the board, which, you know what, if you take it in each thing in isolation, there is some truth to it, and I'm sure he could defend what he was saying. I think as the board now, I feel that we're very transparent. I feel that, you know what, everybody has a voice. We all have an equal voice. I may set the agenda, but I do take, Anthony emails me agenda items or someone that I make sure and get them on there to my best ability. It may not be the next board meeting, but it will be on there sometime. So there was nothing of major concern. I think that was Randy speaking at his board meeting as mayor, and it didn't pertain to the board. I think it was used as an example, and on a personal, I said, why are you bringing the Board of Ed into it? We're in a good spot right now. But you know what? That's he has every right to do whatever he wants to do. He's a city elected official, and
Well, I think just like you clarified today with someone accusing you of corruption, right? So at that meeting, corruption was listed there. So just like you defended yourself, right, and made comment to say, like, take your hands off, I'm saying that comments of corruption being stated at a Beacon City Council meeting should not be unless they have evidence to substantiate that, and if they don't have that, then that probably should not be said. That's just my opinion.
I'm sorry, I'm just confused. I have to admit, I did not watch the whole meeting.
I did.
But so, are you talking about Randy accusing the board of corruption?
I'm just talking about both. Like, there was a lot there. Did you see the video? Did you? Because I think if you watch it, like 11:48, I think I pointed it out to you guys, like where it all started. So
no, I saw it, and it was quite an episode. I'm not.
So it wasn't just Randy, and I think for me, again, what Randy said, I can relate to that. I lived on this board for 2 of my 4 years, enduring that. So I get what he was saying, and in no way am I being negative towards Randy. What I'm saying is that happened, and that is not where we are as a board, in my opinion. I think all of you have mimicked that. So I'm just saying we should set the story straight and say that, that isn't a representation of where we are, and we're moving forward. So there shouldn't be anything like that. Again, that's all I'm saying.
And I guess
statements
that
of
I
corruption
felt
shouldn't happen because they have nothing to substantiate that.
Right. I guess I felt like, lead by example. I didn't want to. I just wanted to show that I could sit down with them and that we could have a conversation about the topics that were on the agenda.
I have a question. So from your meeting, did it sound like Randy was open to, if we turned down the SRO program offer, but we wanted a dedicated detective from the juvenile division, which we used to have 3 years ago, he was open to that?
Randy didn't make an offer. Randy just said that they're ready, willing, and available if the board makes a decision on how, and it was specific to an SRO, about if we, he made it quite clear, that's not their decision. That's our decision as a board. He doesn't want to get involved in it, but he says that they're ready, willing, and available to fulfill the position if the board wanted to go that way. If not, they're willing to do what they've been doing since the beginning of the year. So there was no, options presented. There wasn't options presented.
No, because you said that you mentioned that you went over the history. So Detective Johnson was here a lot.
Well,
And
the history.
I'm not Detective Johnson, Detective
Williams?
Detective Williams is here a lot. He was pretty much a dedicated juvenile detective, and he wasn't here all the time, all hours of the school year, but he was here as needed, and he helped. And Detective Johnson, when he took over, was when we spoke to the chief when he was here on August 28th, that he did not give Detective Johnson that same assignment. So, and that we did not see I guess we have concerns that we're not getting the same face from the police department every time we need the police department. So Detective Johnson was that face before Detective Williams was that face before he left the force.
So there was some conversation about Detective Williams, and there was another one as well, Jennifer Pisante.
Yes.
And they were through the DARE. They were only involved in the school when they had a day shift, and they weren't rotating. They rotate schedules, so sometimes it would be a second shift or a night shift, and they did not accommodate for the school district for that. To be a common face, it would have to be someone that is assigned to the schools, as in, I would assume. Again, if there's a need, we can always call, and they've been responsive. But as far as having someone dedicated to the schools, that's a decision that we have to make as a board and go from there.
So if we need a dedicated person for the response team, the mayor's not going to give it to us unless we have this and SRO.
I think you're reading into it, and you're going to a conversation about the SRO, and I don't want to assume for that piece. I think it's a discussion. The comment was that they are ready, willing, available to meet the district's needs if the board decides to go that way. If we decide not to, then so be it. There's no hard feelings.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. All right. All right, so we have a resolution, 12.01, which is to adopt a bond resolution for the purchase of school buses, and this is a roll call vote. So, Kelly, you want to do a roll call?
Is there
Any discussion?
Sorry. You want discussion?
Motion? Those kind of things?
We could do discussion and motion. It doesn't matter.
Well, it needs to be a motion, have to do a roll call. I will move the bond resolution for purchase of school buses. Do we need to read the whole thing, or it's in the agenda, so we'll just reference it?
Yep, you're good. Comments or questions?
Question. So why, can you remind me again why we include it as a separate resolution and not with the budget?
This is authorization to do a bond. And it also, the second resolution is to add it to the budget vote. There's specific legal requirements, but that's all in anticipation of putting it out to vote. So we don't do any of these things unless it's a positive vote on the proposition. But these two things have to be done this evening. It's a timing because the bond resolution must be in the paper and the legal notices.
So remind me just what the percentage of reimbursement from the state is for this, because we don't wind up paying for the whole amount with taxpayer dollars.
Right, transportation aid is about 57%, and we are doing the bus bond to spread out the payments over 5 years, which will match the 57% reimbursement over that period.
So if we were to, so that's for purchase of buses, if we just contracted bus service, is that reimbursable?
It is reimbursable through transportation aid, so yes, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. We would have to go out for a request for proposal. We would have to find a company that would actually purchase our buses. We would have, there's a lot of different arrangements. I'm not as familiar with all of the contracted, but we would have some of the same dilemmas that we have, as far as, I think Ron Mackey spoke about driver shortages and all that, and contracted services have the same challenges that we have.
And I know I brought this up last year. We were talking about a study to compare the two different options. I think for now we have our buses, and I think it's not discussion for the decision for this year. But I do think that there should be at least, a study of what the difference is between, contract versus purchase. And then, and then if it were to be, phased in over time. But we should do that. I would
Are
like
you
to
looking
have
for
that
just
study.
a financial impact study for
Well, it's-
contracted, because contracted services, financial is one piece, but then the actual administration of
Yeah, there's a lot of
contracted
different
services
impacts.
is a little more
Administration,
complicated.
changes can't be made quickly because of, buses are not available. So there's a lot of impacts in addition to financial. So that's why I was looking for some kind of study that puts it all together. Again, not to stop this purchase, but I think we really should have that for a view as we look into the future.
So just, I work in a district where they contract buses out, and we just had to do an RFP, and the cost went up over $1 million, I think, having it within the district. We have more control as to the regular expense and how it won't spike really high or drop down really low.
And I can also say I worked in 2 different school districts, one that owned their buses and one that is contracting out, and it's a vast difference.
So there was a spike in operational costs because of
Not just operational costs across the
Did an
board.
RFP in our current costs, we went up over $1 million, and that was with the lowest. And so there might be some things that other companies were doing that weren't included if we went with the lowest.
So I mean, if we were facing that right now, we would be looking at $1 million impact to our budget.
I'm just saying for another district, Mike, so I want to say that's what it would be for Beacon, but.
But it sounds like there's some volatility when you're relying on the contract and you're going out for, RFPs. But,
I think it's nice that we could sustain our own transportation. There's some comfort in knowing that it's our district transportation and that we're not contracting out for it, so we're not at the hands of other people for that. I can tell you that when they're at a staff shortage, they'll just make a move and it affects kids, and then I hear about it from a parent. For instance, if there's a bus driver that doesn't come in, they might combine a run, and then I hear about it because the kid might get home an hour later than typical. So being in a district, knowing Beacon, if they combine a run, I'm sure they're articulating that to the heads, so then they could at least communicate that to the families and parents and so forth. So there are some administrative controls of having it in-house that you may not have when it's contracted out.
Right, and I can see those types of things. So that's why I'm just putting it out there. If we have a study that we can see all those written down and really give us a good view. But I agree with the proposal as shown here. I'm really looking for the future to be able to have a good handle on that. Thank you.
I don't disagree either. Any other comments? Discussion? All right.
Ms. Flynn is excused. Ms. Hewer?
Yes.
Ms. Patchen?
Yes.
Mr. McCaskey?
Yes.
Mr. Singh?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Yes.
Ms. Gadsden?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes. Any motion for 12.02, adopt the resolution provided for inclusion of the proposition on the resolution at the annual budget vote?
So moved.
Second. Second, was that you, Anthony?
Yep.
Discussion? Hearing none? Roll call, Kelly?
Ms. excused. Ms. Hewer?
Yes.
Ms. Patchen?
Yes.
Mr. Rakowski?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Singh? Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Yes.
Ms. Gadsden?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes. Sorry, I couldn't speak. All right. Using the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the Board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. Any item from the consent agenda that a board member would like to be pulled?
1313?
1316 and 1317.
All right, I need a motion to approve consent agenda 13.01 through 13.18 minus 13.13, 13.16, and 13.17.
So moved.
Meredith, is there a second?
Second.
Is that you, Anthony? Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, 8-0. Thank you for 13.08 donations. 13.13. I need a motion to approve 13.13, approval of first reading, waive the second reading of adoption policy 4772.
So moved.
Bill, is there a second?
Second.
Anthony, comments or questions?
Yes. My concern about this is it says the participation in graduation ceremony related activities are predicated on satisfactory completion of all graduation requirements. So it basically says that if you meet all the graduation requirements, you can walk across the stage, is basically what it's saying. In the past, we have refused, we have disallowed certain students from walking across the stage as a punitive measure for disciplinary reasons. And typically, with your seniors, when it gets near the end of the year, that's about the only thing you can use as a threat. And so I was just concerned that since there's nothing in here about that, it basically says satisfactory completion of all graduation requirements, and I'm assuming that means educational requirements.
You still have the ability to do that if you need to, regardless of this policy.
I don't want like a parent coming and saying, well, according to this, you can't do that. So
if something happens, you still
You can follow the code of conduct?
have the ability to do
Okay,
code of conduct.
that's my concern. All right, thanks.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 8-0. And I neglected, we do have, Matt, you want to introduce?
Yes, we granted tenure to a teacher tonight, Ashley McEwen. Congratulations. We will do a more formal ceremony in June recognizing tenure, but thanks for hanging in there for the whole meeting for that. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Do you want to say some words?
I just appreciate it. I've loved my time at Beacon, and I just can't wait to stay here forever. Forever, as long as you'll have me.
Thank you very much for hanging in there tonight. I need a motion to accept agenda item 13.16, which is the first reading of policy 8330, authorizing use of school-owned material and equipment.
So moved.
Second.
Mike, second by Anthony. Comments or questions?
My question is maybe a clarification. Down 2/3 of the way down, the paragraph starts individuals borrowing district-owned equipment. The second sentence there states, in addition, since board members, officers, and employees are issued district-owned equipment in connection with their work responsibilities, the individuals using the district-owned equipment shall not have an expectation of privacy with respect to information contained in the device. Now, we're not,
You want a computer from the district, Mike?
No, I don't. What I'm saying is that we don't, I'm suggesting wording maybe if board members, officers, employees, because we're not issued anything, or I don't have anything that's issued from the district that I know of. The statement implies that we are issued something, and we're not always issued something, so.
Is a laptop being used in
Unless I'm not looking at it correctly.
Would
We
there
do have
ever-
email access, right, which we have on
because
our
none of them-
computers, but.
No, but
Let them
with
see that.
moving over to laptops, I mean, everybody just kind of brings their own
Right.
and uses that, but there could have been a time when there was discussion of whether or not there were district laptops available to be used here at the meetings.
Well, yeah, could a board member borrow a laptop if we wanted
It's a
to?
possibility,
Yeah.
right? So that's why it's just kind of in there. Right now, we don't, and for the majority of us here on the board, bring our own device.
I'm just suggesting the word in addition, if board members, or instead of since implies that you are definitely issued
But I think if you read it in context, if you go up to the second paragraph, where it says the superintendent of schools in consultation with the school board, school business official shall establish regulations governing the loan of the use. So the shall tells me that if you do get it, here are the regulations for it.
Right.
It's to your own interpretation
Yeah, I guess it could be a matter of interpretation, but both, board members are not.
right now.
Not all issued,
Right now, but in districts, there are districts that are moving over to
Right.
how we use devices that they have them for their board members at the meetings.
Right. So
They
can I
don't-
ask the policy committee to consider if instead of since?
Or in addition, since board members, officers, and employees may be issued? Either
Something-
way.
Either way, something to imply that it's not, we're not all, since you're issued, well, you're all issued your computer because you're on the board. You may or may not be issued.
So what language are you looking to adjust there? In addition to give
Take out the sense, he said.
I was saying replace since with if. In addition, if board members, officers, and employees are issued district-owned
Instead of
equipment
since,
in connection with their
yeah.
responsibilities, there's no expectation of privacy. And Bill, you had another
Well,
set of
yeah,
wording,
I
which
mean,
is
they're
fine
basically
as
the same
well.
thing, yeah.
So, can we make
Make a motion.
a motion to amend it and add the word if in there, and then we
Instead
just
of
go
since.
forth with the first read and then have it corrected for the second read?
That's,
So in
I can
addition,
make
if
a,
board members.
so I would make a motion to amend this sentence to state, in addition, if board members, instead of since board members.
Is there a second?
Second.
So, Mike made the motion to replace the word since with if in the next to last paragraph in policy.
Eight, three,
8330 with the word if, and it was seconded by, I'm sorry, Bill?
Yes.
All right. Comments or questions? Anthony?
No.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 8-0. So now I need to I need a motion for 13.16 for policy 8330 as amended, changing the word since to if board members in the policy.
So moved.
That was
Second.
Georgia, Bill the second. Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 8-0. I need a motion for 13.17.
Motion to approve 13.17, policy 8332, use of district-owned cell phones.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I have two questions. First is the last sentence in the first paragraph. Talking about less costly alternatives, have we considered stipends as opposed to purchasing cell phones for certain individuals?
We have talked about it, that it's contractual, that have to be put into their contract, so we did talk about it in negotiations.
Okay.
So, it's not a bad thought.
Use your own phone and then you get reimbursed a certain amount every month, which is a piece of covers a piece of your bill.
We did talk about that being a liability for you.
Yeah, I think part of it is if your personal cell phone is being utilized for district business, then your cell phone could be all considered, and how do you separate it? So we wanted to make sure that we articulated that this is being used for district use, not personal. So anything on it is
Okay, so we have considered stipends, and for that reason, and contractual reasons, then this is a better way to go the way we have it with
We have,
separate.
right, and district employees, it's the choice. Some of us do not have school district phones, some of us do.
Mhm.
I mean, you do also.
We don't pay stipends though for
Your
it.
concerns about security and personal protected information that might go across on a personal phone that, that to me, that's a liability, as well.
And there's programs for that these days, businesses do it, so there's all kinds of things you can do these days for for security.
Yes, but I mean, my company does that, but that also means that they tell you that they get to control your personal phone and they put programs on it, which means they can wipe things out. And that's the kind of thing I think I would want to do, and I'm not sure how many other employees would want to do that.
There was discussion about it.
There was discussion, okay, thank you. And the other question was at the top of the last paragraph. At least once per year, business office shall evaluate and report to the board on the cost and effectiveness of the district's cellular telephone plan.
We have not done that.
We have not
You
done
are
this, so I'm
correct.
questioning if you've done that.
We have not. Well, if you have the policy, then we will.
So just,
We
okay.
have
I
not
was-
changed from Verizon Wireless. I mean, that's who we use. We can
Mhm.
go out and look, but, you know, we can do the report to you. That's not a
Okay,
problem.
so, so once this gets approved, then we'll be doing it once a year.
Any other discussion topics? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 8-0. I need a motion to approve addendum to the agenda 14.01, which is resolution 031218A.
So moved.
Bill? Is there a second? Georgia? Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 8-0. We're not doing a second executive session. I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Meredith, is there a second?
Second.
Georgia? Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 8-0. Motion adjourned at 10:11. And just for the record,